Okay, everybody. So unfortunately, the internet is down today, or it's working, but it's really sketchy. And this it was just like Friday. The students weren't able to see my document camera or hear me consistently. So here's what we're going to do. So we are going to work on this lesson two, and we skipped that. And the reason that we're going to do lesson two is because it's really how the final is set up. Okay, so I also put some practice problems on Canvas for you to do. It's in a Delta Math assignment, and that part is optional. You can do it or not, but that's sort of how the problems are going to be set up on the final midterm. It's not going to be a huge amount of points. So I think I have it at about 94 points is what it's going to be. And there's going to be two parts to it. So one part is going to be a Delta Math part, but you got to be careful because they're going to be questions that you've got to know the answers to pretty quickly. Okay, so you want to make sure that even though you can use your notes, you really don't want to use your notes. And sometimes that is a bad thing when we say you can use your notes, because students don't prepare as well as they should because they think, oh, I'll be able to look it up. That'll take you way too long. You'll run out of time. So both parts are timed so that you got to be working pretty quickly. Okay. So again, do the little practice one on the Delta Math. Make sure that you get how they're set up. That's the main thing I think I want you to do. And then there's going to be some open-ended questions, and they will be very similar to this. So this is going to be taking pretty much everything that we've learned so far, but it's doing it symbolically with tables and graphs. I didn't want to just put regular old derivatives because, you can put those in the internet and you can get those. So these ones you got to make sure that you know how to do. So you want to get those out of your notes or out of your packet. And then before you put them in your notebook, you're going to skip a page because there's one more page that we're going to do, and I'll probably end up having to make a video that has to do with implicit differentiation. But I'm going to save that because I want to make sure that we have everything set. So pretty much you'll know by the time we're done with this today and those problems on the Delta Math, that's pretty much what that test is going to look like. Okay, so I think you guys are going to be good. Like I'm not worried that people aren't going to do well. Okay, so again, let's just look at these tables and graphs and just make sure that we have a comfort level for them and how we do these types of problems. Okay, so this first one, notice that they're telling us here that the function's differentiable. Remember, that's important that we always know that. And we're trying to find the derivative at this point right here. Now, in this case, we have no information on how to find the derivative. All we have is x and f of x. So one thing that we can do is we're going to estimate it. And I want you to think about when we're using a table, how would you estimate something like that? Okay, so I'm just making this function up. This has nothing to do with this. I'm just making it up. Like, let's say that we had to find the derivative right there. Well, we know that the derivative is just the slope of the tangent line. So one way that we could just estimate it is, well, what if we just took a point that was pretty close to it and we just found the slope? Okay, so that's what we're going to do in this case. So I'm going to look at these 2 points are pretty close to each other. Okay, so it's like I'm looking at, here's x, here's y. I have this point. I have 0.1, 0.261, and I have 0.2 and 0.433. Okay, all I'm going to do is find the slope of those 2 points, but I want you to see the notation. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's approximately equal to f of 0.2 minus f of 0.1 all over 0.2 minus 0.1. Okay, so all I'm doing is changing y over the change in x. Okay, so that is 0.433 minus 0.261. And of course, I would use a calculator for this. 0.1 is approximately 1.72. Okay, so I just want you to be aware of that idea. If you were to have a table and you had to estimate, then I want you to think, just use 2 points that are close together. Okay, so this is more of what our test is going to look like. So I'm going to give you some values, and I'm going to ask you to find some derivatives. Okay, so again, I want you to look at notation. Okay, so they're telling us that we have a table here, and we're given the derivative at each of these points. Okay, so we've got x, f of x, and the derivative, g of x, and the derivative. Okay, so we want the derivative of this at this. So I'm trying to find h prime of 2. Okay, so let's just look. H prime of 2. So again, remember, we're looking at how we're setting this up. I know that this is a composition, so I got a mommy and a baby. So I have to differentiate the mommy, leave the baby in, times differentiate the baby. Okay, so that's going to keep it all nice and organized for me. Okay, so g of 2, okay, here's g, here's 2, g of 2 is 3. So I want f prime of 3, g prime of 2. When x is 2, g prime of 2 is negative 1. Okay, let's find f prime of 3 is negative 2 times negative 1, which is going to be positive 2. So h prime. Okay, and that is how you would show me all of your work on how you would justify that. Okay, so again, we're trying to find over here k prime of 2. And we have the mommy function is on the outside. The baby function is f of x. Okay, so let's see. K prime of 2. I'm going to differentiate the mommy, and I'm going to leave the baby in. And now I'm going to differentiate the baby. Okay, so let's look at that. So I have a 3, f of 2. I'm going to come over here. F of 2 is negative 4. F prime of 2 is 8. So that's 3 times 16 times 8. And that is going to give me 384. Okay. And again, the way these are going to be on the little quiz test, I guess little test that we'll have on Thursday, is that you'll have to be able to do them fast. Okay, so you won't have a lot of time to be trying to figure out how to write this. So that's why you want to make sure that you're well practiced on these. But I liked these problems because they kind of take into account all the different types of derivatives that we've done so far. Okay, so let's look here. We're finding p prime of 2. And I can see that I'm going to have the product rule here because I have 2 functions, and that this function has a little baby inside. So I'm going to have to use the chain rule as well. Okay, so p prime of 2 is going to equal, and it depends, you know, I know I do it 2 different ways. If I'm going to do the first, derivative of the second, let's see, let's do this. Let's go f prime g plus fg prime. Okay, so that's what I'm using the product rule. So f prime of 2 times g of 2x. I'm not going to use the chain rule because I didn't have to find the derivative of that. Plus, I'm going to do f, which is f of x, g prime. Okay, so the derivative of this, g prime, leave the baby in, multiplied by the derivative of the baby, which is 2. Okay, let's see where we're at. F prime of 2 is 8. G of 2x. Well, this is G of x is 2, 4. Oops. F prime, and I should have put, you know what, I could have done this. I could have just put a 2 right there, and I could have put just a 4 right here. And I'll put a 4 right here. I'm not sure which way is easier. Okay, so let's look at G of 4. So G of 4 is 2 plus F of 2, which is negative 4, G prime of 4, which is 3, times 2. So it looks like I have 16 minus 24, which tells me that P prime of 2 is equal to negative 8. Okay, let's look at one more on this page here. Okay, so this guy, I have division, so I got to do low-de high, high-de low. And I am trying to find R prime of 2. Okay, so R prime of 2, low, D high. Okay, so the derivative of F of 2x, leave the baby in, find the derivative of the baby. So that's the derivative of that, minus high D low. And then I'm going to square the bottom, and away we go. Okay, so in this one, I'm going to put in all the numbers second hand. Okay, so I'm going to do G of 2 times F prime of 4 times 2 minus F of 4 times G prime of 2 all over G of 2 squared. Okay, let's see what we've got going here. So we have 3 times negative 1 times 2. F of 4 is 0. That's convenient. I'm not going to put anything else because 0 times anything is 0. G of 2 is 3. Okay, so that's going to be negative 6 over 9, or negative 2/3. Okay, these are kind of fun. Okay, so there'll be a part 2 coming up.